I remember the very first time I started teaching and losing my mind because I had no idea how I was supposed to take these big goals and turn them into actual lesson plans. Like, it's great to have a learning goal, but what the heck am I going to do on Monday? That's what I was concerned about. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I do usually at the beginning of each semester to plan things out and kind of nail down the pacing that you need. And that will help the rest of the year kind of set a tone and a schedule for yourself. You can use the template that I have on my website, or you can just make your own either way, and I'll have everything linked below for you. So this is the document that I am going to be using to show you how I do my lesson planning at the beginning of the year. You don't need to use this document. I do have it available on my website for download. It's like $5. But really all you need is like a section where you separate out the weeks, a spot for your state standards, a spot for the resources that you're going to use, and a spot for your summative assessments. And if you are working with a team, if you have a teacher who's already taught this subject for a few years, I highly recommend that you sit down with them at the beginning of the semester and kind of march out the way that they usually do things. And then you can adjust it for what works for you and what works for the kids that you end up with in your class. So first thing I'm going to show you is how I take the state standards and kind of like push it into the rest of the year. So these are the state standards that I have. I do have it linked on this for you as well, where you can go and find your state standards for your state. But I want to look through and I want to take a look and see, okay, what are the standards? And I'm not going to figure out like every single thing. They have so many, you guys. There are so many standards and they use really complicated phrasing. So I don't want you to look at that and freak out and be like, there's no way I can do all of this. Because the reality is that throughout the semester, you will cover most of these, but you do need to know kind of what is out there, okay? So you're going to find the grade that you teach. You're going to look at some of this stuff. Now for ELA, which is what I teach, they kind of have like 3 different types of standards. They have speaking and listening, and then they have reading and writing. So those are like the main things that I try to focus on. So let's take a look at this. Okay, we're just going to take this standard right here. That's reading and writing standards for freshmen, write arguments to support claims in an analysis of substantive topics and texts using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. And then they have all the really big specifics down below. So really what they want is to, they want an analysis paper, right? So I'm going to go over and I'm going to say, okay, I need an analysis paper somewhere over here. I think we can get to an analysis paper by here, right? So I'm going to write analysis paper. I would also copy and paste the state standards that will be kind of approached, but I don't know exactly which state standards I'm going to be hitting quite yet because I do probably need to figure out, okay, what resources are available. And this is going to be different based on what your school does, what the school district has, if you have a textbook, whatever the case is. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that your first unit is going to be 4 weeks long, okay? And usually it ends up being a little longer than that. But what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to say, okay, let's merge these because my first unit is going to be this long. So I'm going to merge these cells and I'm going to say this is going to be like kind of my first, oh great, excellent. I love it when it doesn't highlight, right? Like, why are you the way that you are? Okay, so let's say I'm going to write arguments and support claims and analysis. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over. Let's see if it works. It worked. I also put like the number that it is. It's like 1. So it would be like writing standards 1. So just to kind of keep track of what you're doing. That way, as you're kind of pacing out the year, you can look back and see, oh, okay, I didn't cover number 3 or whatever. Okay, and then you want to look at the resources that are available to you at your school. So maybe you guys don't have a lot of resources, but maybe you guys do have one-to-one computer use, right? So maybe everybody's got a Chromebook. So maybe what you're primarily going to be using is news articles, okay? Or maybe you also have like some sort of textbook that they use. Maybe you're going to put the textbook here. And you're also going to kind of merge this because we want to kind of demonstrate that all of these different weeks are going to be kind of using the same kind of mix of things. The next piece is that you're going to figure out, okay, or do we have like novels? Like what do we have, right? So I'm going to add in here, like maybe I have Fahrenheit 451. If I was actually reading a novel with all the rest of this, this would be a longer unit. But and then you could also put various assessments that you have in here, but this kind of gives you an idea that, okay, by week 4, we want to be writing or at least starting. And you know what? This is bothering me because it would definitely take longer than that. So we're going to move it down. Let's say we want to be done with Fahrenheit 451 by week 4 and do our analysis paper by week 5. Okay. And we're just going to merge this too because that's going to bug me if I don't. Okay. Now, I have these weeks lined up right here, which is great because it gives me an idea. It gives me a quick visual of like, okay, what are we doing in the first 5 weeks of school? So what I want to do now is I want to take a jump down to where I have the weeks separated out. Okay, so this is the calendar that I have linked in here. And I'm going to say, okay, weeks through 4, by Friday, we need to be done with Fahrenheit 451. And then by the end of week 5, we need our analysis paper. Okay, so this helps me kind of pace out from the very beginning, like what are my standards that I'm trying to get, which is really the analysis paper. When do we need to be done with like the first unit? Okay, so this would be step 1. Like let's say you just started, you're freaking out, you have no idea what you're going to be doing. This is step 1. All right, you figure out when you need to be done with it. You need to figure out what your standards are going to be, and you kind of blend them together to get a big picture of what that will look like. Okay, then after you have done that, I highly recommend you flesh out the rest of the semester at the very least, preferably the entire year. And I have like enough for the first semester and second semester in here. The reason for that is you need to make sure ahead of time that you're going to have enough time to cover stuff. Now, this is going to change. It would be great if it didn't, right? If we just like created this and like the kids read Fahrenheit and everything went great and we did our analysis paper and everything went great. But sometimes the class is just a major dumpster fire. Or maybe you're a dumpster fire, and that's okay. And you can acknowledge that and be like, hey, I know we said we were going to be done with this by week 4. Turns out I need more time. Sorry about that, guys. And then you adjust and you can shift these things around. The nice thing about having this calendar set up the way that it is, and again, you can just make your own calendar. You don't need to download mine, but start separating out ahead of time what major things you want to make sure that you get done, right? So maybe we want to do a reading quiz on Wednesdays, right? So you know ahead of time, okay, we're going to be doing reading quizzes or reading reflections. If you don't like reading quizzes, that's fine. And every single day, I'm going to have some sort of bell ringer. So I'm also going to copy and paste this out and be like, okay, every day I'm going to have a bell ringer. It's going to be awesome. And that is kind of how I start off when I'm trying to figure out what is my semester going to look like. Okay, so this will give me the bird's eye view of what is going to happen in the first unit. I would highly recommend you work at least 1 unit at this level. You are not going to be able to go through, you won't have the time to go through and write every single bell ringer and create every single thing at this stage, right? And I wouldn't recommend that you do that either because we don't know if by the time we get to week 4, if we're actually going to be ready to do our analysis paper and all of that. So I always recommend the very specific stuff, like the class material you're going to be giving the kids. I usually try and work a week in advance for that piece. This piece, I try and work like a month in advance-ish. I try and fill out these big things. Like I know I want a reading quiz every Wednesday. I know I want an analysis paper at the end. I work out those things. And then the week before or 2 weeks before, I'll write in, okay, I want my bell ringer. I want, let's say intro to author. And then over here, I'm going to say like intro to dystopia, and stuff like that. Okay. So that's kind of how I flesh out. And then the week before or 2 weeks before, I sit down and say, okay, what is this going to look like? What am I going to do to introduce the author in a way that's going to be engaging and relatable for the kids? Okay. So that is where you start. You start with the state standards. You fill out the state standards here. You fill out the resources you have available to you here and figure out your summatives. And then you can go down and fill out the calendar and start to flesh things out to a more detailed degree. Okay, so I hope that helps. Please let me know if you guys want me to go into a little bit more detail or if there's anything else that I could do to be helpful for this kind of big chunks unit lesson type stuff.